This is take 4. I'm going to line this up approximately 1/4 inch away. This time I'm paying attention that the seam allowance is pointing away. Because I'm using stashy or scrappy, I have some franken piecing going on. If you are cutting this from fat quarters or from yardage, you may not have as many seams in this as I do. They're not necessary to achieve the black. They're necessary for me to get the size of unit I need from the fabric I have on hand. The other thing, her colors are baby blue, and this is definitely more teal than that. So I have to make sure that I am scrappy enough throughout the quilt that this does not stand out as the only place where it's not exactly strictly to her colors. If this were the only part where it wasn't exact, it would stick out like a sore thumb. That's pretty good. I'm gonna go here. I want to mark where it starts. Oops, I gotta come in a little because of this chalk it's not pointy enough to get right in to the edge of my ruler. So I'm trying to make a 90-degree angle here. So as I go around that curve, and then I got to go a little bit away because of my chalk. A little bit more. Good. Okay. Don't forget to take out this moon from underneath. Don't do what I did and forget about it and sew it to the back of your unit. Have to rip a seam. A curved seam, no less. Get you out of there. So at this point I'm torn. These are strip scraps. It's not off of a pre-cut roll. So these are 2.5. You seam them together, you get a 4.5. That's the maximum your inner melon can be if you're using pre-cut strips, aka jelly roll strips. That's a brand thing. So like Benartex calls them strippies. I think it's Moda who calls them jelly rolls. 2.5 pre-cut strips. It's like the difference between saying facial tissue and Kleenex. Anyways, I mean, everybody calls it Kleenex, but I use puffs. So if I want them to match exactly, I'll cut it at 4.5. But I kind of like the idea that this is a little bit wider. So if I start with a little bit wider, this, where I cut the points off, will be a little bit wider. And I forgot to trim it before I did this, and I forgot to think about it. So I'm going to try one. These are 4.5 because that's how wide you can get. So if I do these 5, let's see what that looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to put the 5, which is the green line. I'm going to cut this to 5. Knowing that when I use my pre-cut strips, I won't be able to achieve this exact look. But I don't think each volleyball needs to be exactly the same. They're sort of quasi-improv-y. And I think that that's kind of pretty and neato. So the way I did this before is I paid attention this time that the seam allowance points away from my melon. See, it was like a fence rail in this one that looks planetary, but now it's more of a melon. I think I would like to try one using the fence rail again, but using a big curve here and a small curve for the outer one, and see if that's enough. Maybe that's enough that it looks volleyball-y, and then that saves me 2 curved seams. I mean, it's possible. So what I had done before was go about 1/4 inch away, which gives me a nice visual that I'm parallel to the seam, and try to match it left to right to the one below it. And then this was big plate. The inner is kind of counterintuitive. The inner curves are the big curves, and the outer curve is the small curve. Okay, place my plate. Try to center. Okay. Then, Mr. Chubby Chalk. That's about right. I do have a white marker, but it takes a little while. You don't see the white until it dries, and I'm going too fast here for that. When I'm marking a quilt, I'll mark the whole row, and by the time I come back to it, it's dried to where it shows up. When I first got that marker, I thought it didn't work. Okay. So, oh, get rid of your melon. Now sew it on. If only my niece were into football, I'd be done by now. Okay. Here's my eyeball. I went a little bit wider on this one. So again, this seam here is because I don't have a piece of scrappy fabric that is inherently wide enough. You don't need this seam to make the block do anything. So if you have a piece of fabric that's 5 inches wide and you want to hack off a rectangle of that, this one is give or take 5 by 10 to create the inner eyeball situation. Okay, so now I'm going to put my reference out because last time I lost focus and I wasn't doing it right. So my flats are going to go on these sides. My curves are going to go on these sides. So I am going to fold this in half and cut my curves for the outside. And according to this, they would be this dark navy color if I have more of this. This time I used my reference and I remember to cut my curve opposite. So the eyeball goes this way, the curves go this way. I think I could have made that a little bigger. No, that's about right. Okay, so this time I did 3 3/4 and I had folded this in half, so it should be symmetrical. So now I need to do my outside pieces, my sides. And in this one I did just 2 colors. In this one I did 3 colors. I'm going to try 3 colors again. So it's like I have this fence rail inset in a whiter volleyball. Do I think that works? Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's a little too crazy. So I don't have enough of this, I don't think. Let me look at it with this gray. I have a ton of this gray fabric. That's a little more, you know, it's not as textury. Will this make it? Are you my mommy? Maybe. Maybe. Let's dig around and see what else I have for this outer part. We've gone deeper into Mount Stashmore. These are lights. See, we're getting a little green here, but we'll make it work. I also have some solids and some baby blues that I'm going to pull for this. I did find a good size strip of this guy, which I had clearly used as binding. So I think we will stick with this for that outer color because I have enough. I kind of like this one. So they speak Portuguese, and it's got thank you in all languages, a bunch of languages, including Portuguese and English and Spanish and German. All languages that they speak. So that's kind of a cool one. This will definitely make a fun light. So it's all over the place a little bit. This would definitely have to go on that deep gray as a background. This could not go on white because you'd lose the edge instantly. Same with this. I don't know, if you put this on gray, you'll lose your edge. If you put this on white, you'll lose your edge. I think this one is maybe, I could use it for the, not really for the outer edge, but I have it. Maybe this one. And then this is just a deep gray. If I need some dark, it works as dark. I did want to go a little bit scrappy and chaotic to hide the fact that some of my light blues are actually a little more in the teal side. I really like this, but I don't think I have 20 inches of it, do I? Just about. Which means I would have enough for the sides of a volleyball, but then I don't think I'd have enough for this little upper and lower because I got to do these strip units on the flats. So maybe I can dig around and find more of this. This might be close enough to this that I can substitute them and sort of pass. Sometimes passing is the best you're going to do. I could also, use this for the right side, so where this seams, it matches itself better, and this for the left side. I don't know, that might be a little too chaotic. This has like a greenish hue to it. This is more of a neutral gray. It's really like neither warm nor cool. It's like a pure gray. It doesn't have brown or blue undertones going on. Anyways, this one's got a little bit of a bluey greeny undertone. It's definitely not going to work with this color. Okay, proceeding. I just want you to know that the level of chaos that is happening in this room right now is like 27 on a 12-point scale. For the side pieces, I am cutting 2.5 by roughly 10-inch units. And these need to be pressed, so that's what's going to happen here. Oh, yes, it cut. Okay, so now I have a left and a right Twix here that can go around my volleyball. We're going to go from the center. Let me see if I can mark it a little bit. That is for me and you. From the center to the flat parts. And what did I do on this one? At 5.5. Which means it would have been cut to 6. So did I go 3 inches out? Let's go 3.5 at least. You know what I did in the other direction was 3 3/4. So let's go 3 3/4. I feel like that's going to be the vibe. Okay, so we are 1, 2, 3 3/4 puts us on that little pink line. What does this look like? Oh yeah. That'll catch in the seam allowance. That'll be good enough. All right, so here's my eyeball units with my sides. And now here, this was 1.5 inches, and I felt like those were a little bit skinny for a couple of reasons. These points didn't match up very nicely. And that this is meant to be one continuous piece, and it does not look like it as much with this little corner here. And this one, I misjudged it too skinny. This, where I intersected this was too skinny, and there was like zoop, zoop points that come in. This one, I misjudged it too wide. So I think now that I'm closer to these dimensions, I'm going to make these wider. So if I make each of these 2, that'll push all of this out a little bit and get a little bit closer. So we're gradually like swirling, spiraling in on what we want. So if we keep this color scheme, we're going to do the navy, the little flowers, and the navy. I would need 3 pieces, and I've been making them 5 inches long. That's been plenty. And then a 3rd piece, 5 inches long. And then this little color, I need 2 pieces, 2.5 by 5. Looks pretty good. Certainly wider than 1.5 inches. I don't think, so if I cut them 2.5, they'll turn out 2 inches. I think that is going to be maybe too wide. So maybe what I'll do is I will make these center 3 all the same. So if I make them all 2 1/4, maybe that'll look the most even and the most like this. All right, so I'll press these, and I think I'm going to try 2 1/4 for these, and these don't matter. They just need to be wide enough that when I trim it, I don't have little notches in here. So I'm going to leave these. These are I'm going to put all to 2 1/4. The best thing we can do is audition, see how it turns out, see if we like it more or less or the same, And then our next iteration will take what we like from our practice and move on. So literally every block of this quilt is going to be practice for the next one. The last volleyball I make is going to be amazing. So these were 2.5. I just left them there. These I trimmed down to 2.25. What I like about that is on these pre-cut strips, I got rid of that pinking, which I don't love to work with. So this is going to be our strip unit for the ends. I think we're a little bit off here. I should have done what was my instinct and go with 2 inches on these. So 2.25 I think works. 2 inches would have been better. So we'll go 2.25, 2, and this is plenty by 5. And I'm going to remember this time to cut these in half first. That should give us plenty of trimming for our little round trimmies. Also 1 to the top, 1 to the bottom. I'm going to press each of these in half so I can match centers between the units. So if you're using scraps, these end pieces may not be trimmed neatly and perfectly. So what I'm trying to do is center this seam here. So if this is all just whatever, crazy, match these seams, find the center between this point and this point, because all this is getting trimmed off anyway. So if these are wonky, it won't matter. But this is what I want to be in the middle of. I was able to sew another seam inside that seam and get my points to match up a little better. And I've already gone with my marker and traced just on the light blue because that's the only place you're going to see it anyways. So let's see. This is iteration 4, I believe. And we're going to cut it out. And you will tell me if you think this is, oops, slid a little, don't slide. If you think this is volleyball-y. Is it volleyball-y? Big reveal. Is it volleyball-y? Ah! I think that's the closest one yet. I think that's the closest one yet. It's pretty close. I'm going to take a picture and send it to the peanut gallery and see if they find that to look like a volleyball. 2 colors or 3 colors? Like, should it be a white volleyball with a colored insert? But I kind of like 2 colors. Like, even if I put white as one of the colors, I think just 2 colors. I think more than that gets confusing and your eyeball doesn't get the story. It's like too complicated. I think that's pretty volleyball-y. Yay! I think that's pretty volleyball-y. I'm into it. I am really getting somewhere on this. So this is wide enough that I can get a 10 by 5 rectangle with no seam required for my football. And this is the same color as number 2, color scheme as number 2 that I messed up. So I'm going to repeat that. This is a little bit more the actual baby blue that their uniforms are. So I want to try to get this. And then I have a lighter solid baby blue that I might use as background squares because I have it in yardage. And I might use as part of the volleyballs. Half of sewing is patting your table and looking for stuff. So anyways, this is going to be number, I guess, 5. Then I thought I would do a dark one. So this color I thought was so cute, and then a dark gray, and I can put this on a white background, and I think this will be really cute. And then I wanted to use this thank you fabric, and I'm not even 100% sure I have an obrigado on there. The way this is cut, the words go this way. I think if it were cut this way, you would get more of the words. Anyways, so this and this on a gray background, this and this, and I think that's got to go on a darker gray background, and this and this on a white background. All right, I found it. So I am going to use this strip, and it does go along the words. So I'm going to make another one of these with this. I think it's going to be fun and scrappy slash stashy. And I think it's going to turn out really cute. And then it'll give me an excuse if I need to go like totally out of left field for a couple of the backgrounds to make the colors pop. There's going to be enough going on that it will not look out of place. If you are too orderly and then you go chaotic, it's going to stand out. If you are a little bit chaotic through the whole thing, then your chaotic bits don't look like outliers. They just are part of the general chaos of the quilt. I gotta figure out what color is gonna pair with this, because there's a lot happening here. It's certainly not gonna work together. Let's see if we can find some partners for these two. Okay, this is definitely more along the lines of the baby blue, and I think this will work. So this is gonna be a pairing. Kind of cute. Maybe these two together. Let's make this a pair. Keepsake Calico. And it doesn't say who made it. You know, information that would be useful, dude. Anyways, this is like a textural kind of grayish on white. And this is going to be maybe some background fabric. Yeah, these are a little more vibrant. Like this is, it just looks like it's from the wrong time period. It's a little too washed out. It's not jamming with the rest of the quilt. So we're taking this one out. And we are going to do, I think this is going to be my jam. I think it's light enough as a background. Now obviously like this one is probably not going to go on there. It's probably going to go on a gray, a white, like a solid white. Even this I think is too much happening for this light colored one. But like the dark one, it's dark enough that you're still getting contrast against any of these. So I think this is my vibe. And I bought this wide back for something else. And I think what I might do is make little volleyball nets. So in between the blocks, I think I'm going to cut a long rectangle of this ball net. So it'll be a ball, a net, a ball, a net. Okay, and then this pattern will also work with 10-inch squares, I think. I think this is plenty of fabric. This darker blue and this more navy blue. And I also stole this out of a kit I was putting together for another quilt. But I think this is more, it's going to go more in this quilt. You might be a background. Not nearly enough contrast. If I put this with white, that'll be really cute. I can put this with white and put it on a not white background. But I think this would be fun. And there's plenty of it. So this might go into a volleyball. I don't know, is that too trippy? Is that too large scale? I mean, it just needs to be dark relative to what I put it with. Okay, so we're far enough through the process now that tries 1 and 2 are going to be retired to my crumb bin. I am just pinning together the pairs of fabrics because I'm not going to get to all of these blocks tonight. So I remember who went with who, and I don't just have a mess in the morning. And I think I'm going to alternate like ball net, ball net. So that means that the background color of one ball has to give me some contrast to the bottom part of the net. And I'm going to have to Google what's the length versus height so that I get a good rectangle. I'm going to use some of this for background. And I think it'll be nice to have the same fabric appear in a volleyball and then later in a background. It'll give it a little bit of cohesion. So I'm just going to take a 7-inch strip off of this yardage. And should I cut it in half? I think I will. I think that's plenty. I think I just need half of this strip for each block. So I'm just going to split this full with a fabric strip in half. And then I will have this set. And then I'll have this set. Oops, I know. Which is going to be a volleyball. I think this is going to be fun to sort of pepper it with different blues. And it'll camouflage that some of these blues are a bit on the tealy side. You'll sort of forget that I'm not strictly adhering to the color. I think I do like this combination. So because I am lazy, I am not going to seam rip this whole thing. Don't seam rip when you can just cut the seam off. Bloop, pull that batting out of there. But I'm trying to get a little bit back to the original color scheme. So this is way more. I think this would have to go on a dark gray or maybe one of my wildcard backgrounds to pop. Otherwise, it's it can't really go, like white, gray, or baby blue are going to be too blendy, I think. So this might be a wildcard background. I have not started pairing backgrounds with these yet, but I have pulled a selection. I'm just going to throw black and this gray into the background arena. I'll see. I won't be pairing these until later on, so I'll kind of see how my best volleyballs turn out. So when I make the volleyballs and I see how I like them and I decide how tired I am of making volleyballs, then we'll see. So I've made my stack and I designed a quilt. I'm going to use 14 of these volleyballs, but they're raw edge and this is going to a child. So I am going to use regular Vilene DO102 on the back and do a stitch and flip so that it'll be a turned edge applique and not a raw edge applique. And these will be appliqued onto the quilt. And the other thing is that I have finished my roll. I will say one problem with these 29-inch rolls, which I love, if you're doing a whole memory quilt and you need a lot of Vilene, this is just about the right amount. But if you open this roll and then don't use it all, then it's really hard to seal it. And I like to seal these back up against humidity. And the smaller rolls fit in a giant, like 2-gallon Ziploc bag. And I haven't figured out how to seal these away from the normal humidity in a room when you're like steaming quilts and whatever. So if I store this for any length of time and I haven't used the whole roll, I'm still, does anyone have suggestions? It's 29 inches. It's like the same size as you would use for like wrapping paper. Do those wrapping paper things seal out humidity? Are they that sealed? You know, there's those plastic tube holder things. Maybe I'll look at one of those. Let me know. Comment below. Okay, so it is all quilted. It needs to be trimmed and bound, but there it is, bouncing, because I only have one hand. I haven't taken my markings out yet. It's gonna be cute.